Thanks for tuning in to the Urban Scope podcast. I'm back with more hip hop news, or better yet, a hip hop discussion. Now, listen to Tony Yayo, of course, he's an affiliate of G Unit and 50 Cent and the whole G Unit movement, New York movement. And of course, he's very 50 Cent pro because that's his guy. But they had a heated discussion recently that I don't think is really a discussion, but of course, I'm going to address it because that's what we do. um, who had the better rap career between 50 Cent and Jay Z. Now, of course, Jay Z's career has been expanded all the way to the close to the mid 90s, and 50 Cent's career blossomed pretty much in '03, even though he was out in the late 90s and things like that. But for the most part, his career was in the 2000s when he released Get Rich or Die Trying, and he started to extend after that. But of course, he didn't keep a long career. He went into the film and movie industry and started to write books and started to do a lot of TV show stuff and a lot of stuff behind the scenes as far as business wise, which Jay Z has done as well. But he always pretty much kept music in the forefront, and always released projects into these last maybe 5 or 6 years, well, maybe close to 10 years now. He's not really been active with music, but for the most part, he had a 20+ year career of steady releasing albums and music and features and things like that. 50 Cent more is predicated now on, like I said, TV shows, and he does great theme music or theme songs for these shows now. But primarily, he's not focused on music. He just did a tour, touring the music of his old catalog, over the last couple of years. But for the most part, he hasn't been active. But when you think about their careers, um, 50 was a part of the Shady Aftermath tree musically. So they had a lot of creativity, but they also did a great job of splitting the pie between their artists. You don't never hear artists complain about not getting paid or not getting enough money because they always had those opportunities, but they also helped them venture into different things. Uh, Most of the artists, like a Eminem, he was primarily music, but he had endorsements and he had other ways to get money, touring and things like that. And he never complained about the money, at least publicly. Dr. Dre, we know what the money machine he was with the Beats by Dre, selling it to Apple, becoming the first rap billionaire, I believe. What he was able to do away from music. Kendrick Lamar as well, what he was able to do, not just with rap, but do the Super Bowl and the endorsements he has and being an ambassador for, I believe, Chanel, and all these different things that he was able to do as well. So they were branching out other artists to other different things, but they might not necessarily always kept it to the music. And that's the one gripe that most people probably had about Shady Aftermath is they didn't produce as well, release albums as much as you would like, because when you think about it, Dr. Dre, he was releasing albums like every 7 years. Kendrick Lamar was releasing them every 3 or 4 years. Then you had 50 Cent, who released like two albums back to back within a couple of years, but then he went on a hiatus for several times. So a lot of their artists didn't produce as much because they did so well branching their artists out to other things. Now with Jay Z, he branched off to other things, but he didn't really. The people underneath him really wasn't as successful, with the exception of Jay Z. I mean, Rihanna and Kanye West. They venture off to other things, but when you have a guy like a Memphis Bleak, and then you have a guy like that, like Memphis Bleak, and lesser known artists like a Benny Siegel, they really didn't do too well as branching off into other ventures. But everybody under that Shady Aftermath tree found ways to get money and got money in big ways and became multi-million dollars, $100 million heirs, just being making so much money, very lucrative, when you think about the context of the labels that they had. Now, strictly on a rap front, it's not even close about careers because, in short, 50 Cent had an era. Jay Z had a career, and there's a huge difference because if you want to say 50 had the bigger high than Jay Z ever had, you could say that because Get Rich or Die Trying went diamond. Jay Z doesn't have an album that did that. Um, and then The Massacre went on to went multi-time platinum, which was the the next album from 50 after they Get Rich or Die Trying. So probably from around '02 to '03 to about '07 or '08 was 50's run, primarily, which was a 5-year run. But Jay Z from Reasonable Doubt in like 1996 all the way to you can say to the Blueprint 3, which is what 2012, 2011 was his era. So he had decades in this game of being at a high level, and he has 14 number one albums. 50 Cent only has two, which is the Get Rich or Die Trying and the Massacre that ever went platinum or went number one, I should say. But Jay-Z has 14 number ones. Now, 50 Cent has like four number one singles, and Jay Z only had no, he has three number one singles, and Jay Z only has one number one single, which is Empire State of Mind. But 50 has more number one singles, but that was still in that 5 year time frame. Jay Z, unfortunately, was not really popular in the media or popular in the pop world until after the marriage of Beyonce because of his style of rap. So he never made it to that hiatus until later in his career. But as far as rap goes, he's had number one albums because just of his sheer rap ability, but he wasn't popular, so he should have had way more number one singles, but he never had that, unfortunately. But 50 during his era, he was 50 for those 5 6 years. But for the most part, Jay Z has a better career because he has a longer career, and he was way more productive. I think if 50 kept making music and at a high level like he did with the Massacre, I think he could have kept going and could have competed with Jay Moore. But as far as careers go, you would want the career with more longevity. The more number one hits, the more platinum hits, the more uh, he put more people on. I want to say than 50 Cent ever put on, and he just had a longer career, just more productive. Uh, Now you can say that 50's career was predicated on mostly beefs, and that boosted him up. The beefs that he started off with Ja Rule and Rick Ross, and even Jay Z himself, and what he had with Diddy and Kanye, and then the Game. He had a lot of beefs that kept his career going, probably even longer than probably he wanted it to, because he wanted to venture off into other things, being an author and creator and things like that. But Jay Z really only had one beef, and it didn't launch his career with Nas. He had several other beefs, but he didn't go back and forth with people because he didn't predicate his musical style on that. A lot of 50's music was predicated on beefs with other artists, and it kind of boosted him up. And then if he won a battle, it would put him in a higher light, especially the Ja Rule beef when he initially came out, uh, which, like I said, that was something that launched superstardom very quick overnight, even though he had projects before that. But when you talk about productivity and influence and just being a staple of the culture, that's Jay Z's career all day. And it's not too many people you could put over his career. I would put, Nas is over it, and then some people can say Lil Wayne because Lil Wayne had a tough run as well. But like I said, it was a short run compared to what Jay Z's is. Lil Wayne's run was probably about 6 years as well of him just being at a high level. But I think he worked himself out and didn't spread out the music, and that was his downfall. I think 50 just became disinterested and just knew it was more lucrative in other places than music because in his era, it was the height of music as far as hip hop goes, as far as sales. Everybody was selling. It was him, Nelly, Eminem, Jay Z that were only really selling records at that time, but they were selling a mass amount of records. And after the record era, then of course it was the streaming era, and 50 saw the writing in the sand, so he got out. But he still dabbles in and out. But for the most part, Jay Z survived all these different eras that 50 just didn't go through. The melodic rap, the drug dealing rap, the dance, the raps, the snap rap, the crunk music, the conscious rap. He survived all those eras and can come back with his same style and still be relevant, which is very difficult to do. But he was able to do it somehow. So you definitely have to take Jay Z's career over 50's because he just survived through so much and was a staple for so long. And unfortunately, 50 only had like maybe a 5 or 6 year run. So tell me what your thoughts about who has the better career between 50 Cent and Jay Z. And until next time, I'll see you next time.